Hello, welcome to my channel. So since I'm obviously new here, I thought I would start this video off just giving you a little bit of an introduction to myself, what I want out of this channel, and then go through what I read in the month of May. I'm Jessica. I run a pop-up bookstore in Brooklyn. That's where I'm based. I've been in the city for maybe 9-ish years now, and I've been a lifelong reader. Like many of us, I started with like Nancy Drew. I started with Harry Potter. Of course, I'm a millennial. I am who I am. Always really been into fantasy, sci-fi, high stakes, drama, Maximum Ride, Alex Rider, all of that good stuff. So like as far as my reading journey goes, like a lot of people, I read and read and read. But then in college, as I went through this transition into adulthood, I kind of fell off the reading track. I think I felt too old to be reading YA, new adult books. That didn't really exist when I was in college back in 2012. I kind of just fell off the reading tracks. I felt like I should be reading more adult books. I did read some more, I guess, adult books. Like I ended up reading some nonfiction that I really enjoyed. Like I still think about The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks to this day, but I never really found the books that clicked with me. So I kind of just fell off the reading track. Fast forward from 18 to 23, I moved to New York City. I am really starting to find that I need something to read. Not only am I on the subway without any sort of reception, I am also at the park wanting something to do, not wanting to fiddle on my phone. I'm struggling to find the books that really capture my interest. So I'm going to bookstores like the Strand, the Union Square, Barnes and Noble, these places that have these beautiful, beautiful towers of books. I start to find a couple of things that I like here and there in the like horror, thriller, mystery section. Still nothing's totally clicking with me, and I may be reading like 2 to 3 books a year. Good for a lot of people, but for myself, that's definitely less than I used to read. So 2020 happens, like many of us, I'm getting back into my original interest, kind of returning to form for who I am. I really discover the new adult fantasy and romance books and really go down this rabbit hole of not only rereading old books and revisiting these stories that I grew up with, which honestly, a lot of that's like Mortal Instruments, the Twilight book. I started exploring new books too. Like I got on TikTok, I found Book Talk. I'm no longer really on TikTok. It's not really for me, short form content. I'm a long form girl. That's why I'm here. But it really showed me a lot of books that could capture my interest. Like SJM, that got me back into reading quite a bit. I discovered romance and how much I really enjoyed that genre and just like how on the edge of its seat it can make me. Now here we are, 2026. I am a woman in her 30s with a full-time job who's married with 2 cats. And then on top of that, this year I started my own pop-up bookstore. So that's really what brings us here. I have been generally offline. I wasn't using Instagram, still not really using TikTok, and I'm a girl who grew up on YouTube. I'm really just long form content. I've even tried making a couple of TikToks for my bookstore. I keep running into the problem that all my videos end up being like 10 minutes long, which does not fly with the algorithm. So here I am because I talk way too much. I feel like the way I talk is that current meme that's like Gen Z marketing versus millennial marketing. I'm millennial marketing. I don't really anticipate this being a part of my bookstore. I'm using the same channel and everything, but I don't want this to be a place where I'm selling products. Like I'm going to talk about what I'm doing, what's going on in my bookstore, and sharing a little bit about the journey because transparently, I am still figuring it the hell out. I don't know what I'm doing. I have books, I have a table, I go to different parks, and I make some sales. Other than that, I'm really learning how to be a retail business and trying to balance this with my reading, being knowledgeable about the products that I'm selling and knowledgeable about what's going on in the book world, while also maintaining a marriage, maintaining my friendships, and maintaining a full-time job. So anyway, that's what really brought me to this current place on YouTube. Yes, I really started participating in internet culture rather than being an observer because I am now running this pop-up bookstore throughout Brooklyn. I've also found that I really enjoy talking about books. One thing that starting this bookstore has really done for me has helped me really realize how much I enjoy recommending books to people, how much I really enjoy talking about what I've liked, what my opinions are, sharing with others what I've learned and what my impressions are of certain things and having these discussions. I feel like places like Instagram, TikTok, it's just not a place that really allows for that. And I really want to talk about the things that I like. So yeah, my bookstore is going to come up, but I don't see this being a place where I'm like, look at my new product. That's not what I want out of this. That being said, this isn't really going to be a book critique channel either. At least that's not how I see it. I think there are a lot of books that I read that I don't necessarily enjoy, but honestly, I don't read that many books that I think are bad. If I'm reading a book that I think is bad, chances are I'm not gonna finish it. Like, I will read maybe like 15, 20%. If it's a really popular book, yeah, I might end up finishing it, even if I don't like it. But I also understand if it's popular, it's probably just not for me. And I read plenty of books that I think are okay, but I realize don't connect with me personally. So I will be talking about those, but I don't foresee this being a critique channel. That's not really what I want. I try not to be a hater at heart. I really just like to share the things that make me excited, and that's what I want this to be about. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to talk about books I didn't enjoy, but don't expect me to be massively hating on something or pointing out things that I 100% loathe. Again, I am a bookseller at the same time, and I don't want to be dogging on any authors, any books, for the sake of doing that, not only as a business owner, but again, it's just not who I am. All right, so I figure let's get into what I read in May. It is May 22nd, so I do actually still have several days of the month to go. However, I am going on vacation Europe in about 5 days, and I will be gone for about 2 weeks. So I will maybe try to film a vlog while I'm out in Europe about like what I've been reading on vacation, what I've read on the plane, because it is a long flight, but I don't really anticipate having time to film a May wrap up while I'm out there. So I have actually been reading quite a few books via audiobook, especially because I've been so busy between my 9 to 5 and then also with my bookstore pop-ups. I'm doing a lot of hauling stuff around. I'm doing a lot of setup, a lot of breakdown. Audiobooks have really, really taken over a big chunk of my life. I am usually reading multiple books at once. That's how I operate. I listen to books via Audible as well as via the library. I rent books from the library, both physical as well as ebook. I read on my Kobo. I'm really more of a Kobo person than a Kindle person. And then I also read physical books as well. That being said, because I am buying books for my business now, I'm really not reading too many physical books unless I'm getting them from the library, simply because if I'm buying a book, I'm buying it to sell it. And oftentimes I'm really trying to read a lot of the inventory before I sell it. So that's really where the library is coming in handy for me. Let's pull up my story graph. Okay, so we're gonna go most recent to oldest. I'm reading The Deal. I'm almost finished. I'm gonna go ahead and say I completed it because by the time this video is up, I will have completed it. I have maybe an hour left in the audiobook. So as we all know, Off Campus came out this past month. And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I was entranced. I thought it was really cute. I felt butterflies, the relationship tension that I was really looking for. I was surprised at how much I liked it. And I will say that is because I tried reading The Deal back in like 2021 and I DNF'd it. Honestly, I don't think I gave it a fair shot to begin with. I may not have been in the right headspace to read it, but I really did not like how the male characters talked about puck bunnies at the beginning of the book, which look, I know I've now read the book. I get it. But I still would say I like the book less. It's not to say that it's not a good book. And, I see why so many people like it and so many people have gravitated to it. I like the changes that the show did more than the events that happened in the book. I really like the way they portrayed Elle and Dean. I'm really looking forward to their season. And honestly, I may just skip to their book because I'm interested to see how they are. It may also have to do with the audiobook narration. I mean, obviously, actors take their own license. The story's different in the show. And so listening it to via audiobook and hearing how the characters are portrayed, how they are expressing certain things, it just wasn't as like cute and butterfly inducing to me. I think also the book is a little bit more cartoon villainy, I guess is the best way to put it. It's a fine book. I've enjoyed it. I don't think the off-campus series is for me. I didn't think it was when I first read it a couple years ago, but I'm glad I've read The Deal now and I can see why people are drawn in and why people are really into it. It's just not really my genre of romance books. And to be honest, I'm not really that into straight sports romance. Now, hear me out. I really like romance of all varieties. I like sapphic. I like gay. I like, general queer, everything under the spectrum. I like straight romance. I like all of it. But when it comes to sports, I think one of the reasons I'm really drawn to queer sports romance is because the stake can be so high. I really like them both to be athletes. I like them both to understand exactly what the other is going to. And I like the focus on the sport itself. I think it just creates such interesting, delicious tension. The few straight sport romances that I've liked have generally been like tennis or figure skating. And that's because they're sports that are generally co-ed. And so these people understand each other and they have similar stakes. They understand in a way that no other person can the importance of what their love interest is doing. And I just find that delicious. So anyway, that's the deal. So speaking of gay sports romance, I read Two Left Feet by Kallie Emblidge. I actually found this book because I was running a pop-up and Kallie Emblidge lives very close to me, it turns out. And she told me she wrote this book. And so I got the book. I'm actually gonna have signed copies pretty soon, which I'm really excited about. It is a sports romance about football, UK football, not American football, like what everyone else in the world calls football. This book takes place in the UK. It is the Cambridge football team, football club. Football club. So we have our main character who is Camden, born and raised. He came from nothing. He's been considered like the hero of Camden, basically, and a star player who's never really been able to reach his potential just because the Camden team hasn't been able to reach their potential where they really should be, at least with someone as talented as him on the team. So, like, he loves his city, he loves his community, he loves his team. It's been his lifelong dream. He is a closeted player. He has seen that no player who has come out of the closet, which has been primarily United States from his experience, has really gone on to do anything or have success. Even if they are allowed to play, they lose sponsorships. Their contracts tend to not get renewed. It really tends to destroy a lot of careers. And so someone who's so beloved by his community, he is absolutely terrified of coming out and just resigns himself to living basically a secret life until he finishes his football career. Mind you, I think he's 28, so, you know, not young by a professional athlete standards, but certainly not retirement age yet. Enter our new little heartthrob. So after our lead is injured, we call up a replacement who they had on loan from Spain. I absolutely adore this character. He's so cute, like so high energy, just like really adorable, open and loving. So this character is really interesting because his mom immigrated from Colombia to Spain. He grew up in Spain for like maybe the first 8-10 years of his life. His dad is British, moved them to the UK. And so he spent like the rest of his formative years in the UK. So he has this really complex identity in that culturally he is Colombian, but also Spanish. Then he has a British accent for the most part. He has lived in the UK and spent a lot of time in the UK, but he feels like he doesn't really fit in any area. Like he's too Spanish and English for Colombia. He's too Colombian for Spain. And then he's too Hispanic and Latino for the UK. He has this idea that he has like a hard time finding his place. I can't 100% identify with that, but look, I'm a white passing half Mexican, like who grew up in Texas. I was never Mexican enough for Texas, and I certainly, and I was never white enough for the white people of Texas either. So, you know, understand a small part of that, but I really like that part of the story. And honestly, like that's my one critique of this book is that I really wish there was like a lot more of that because I find that type of story so compelling, probably just because of my own personal history and experience being someone of mixed race, but I absolutely adored that about the character and I thought it was so good to see. So anyway, this kid is called up to like be his replacement and he's being asked to train him. So which of course our lead is like very against. Like who wants to train the replacement? Not me. I would hate doing that. So at the same time, there's like this underlying attraction that's fizzling. And of course, you know, there's a little bit of an age difference, nothing too crazy, because this kid has been playing for, I think, like a year or two in Spain on loan. At the same time, you know, he's older. He might get moved soon because he is injured and less likely to recover effectively. He's had threats from the owner of the team because the team hasn't been performing, and he could probably get a lot of money for him since he's not super old yet. So all these complex things that are going on around not only the relationship professionally to this new player, but also personally and like trying to fight his feelings because he can't be out. He didn't know this guy is gay. But surprise, surprise, he's gay. So I won't offer any spoilers, but as it's a sports romance, you can imagine exactly where this is going. I think it's really nice to see this relationship blossom. The way that these two come together and sort through their issues. There's like a ton of miscommunication, which I love miscommunication. There is a ton of imperfect characters and people not acting in a perfect manner, which I also love. I need my characters to do wrongs because I'm an angst lover. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't know football that well. I thought they did a good job explaining in the book about how things worked and having the sport featured, but not making every single thing about the sport. All right, so next, Big in Sweden by Sally Franson. So this is one that I read via audiobook, and it was actually narrated by Meg Ryan, the actress, which was interesting. I hate to say it, but I really think Meg Ryan narrating this audiobook was a detriment to the book. So hear me out. Meg Ryan, fantastic actress. Her narrating the audiobook was almost like her reading a bedtime story. Like, when you're reading a bedtime story to your kid and you don't want to shout, so you go like this. That's how she was narrating the audiobook, which, some audiobook narrators do that, but it really felt like half-hearted, like she didn't want to fully go out and act out these characters and scenes. And I think the best audiobooks are ones where the narrators are really like going all in and really expressing themselves and really acting some of these items. And I think there are ways to express yelling, to express laughter without going ha ha ha. So it really just like took me out of it because this book has like a ton of laughter, expressiveness, drama, and all these different characters going at it and going at each other. And I just don't think Meg Ryan really delivered. But let's talk about the book itself, Meg Ryan aside. Big in Sweden. We're following our main character who is of Swedish heritage. She is basically estranged from her family, kind of has a bit of a relationship with them, but it continues at best. So she knows she's of Swedish heritage. And when she's drunk one night with her best friend, she applies to be on a Swedish reality show that is about Swedish Americans who want to meet their family in Sweden. So the trick with this reality show is that only one person will get to meet their family. That's the prize. There's no money. It's just you get to meet your family. And they go through a series of competitions. They're supposed to be related to Swedish heritage and culture. Whoever makes it to the very end, they're going to get the chance to meet their family. If not, they're sent back to America. It was fun. I'm a sucker for a book with reality TV show contestants. Like I love a reality show book. I don't know what it is, like a thriller book that is a podcast, a romance book, or like a mystery book that's a reality show. I love it. And I wouldn't necessarily call this a romance book. Like there's romance in it. That's not the main part of this. I would say it's like more general fiction, or I hate the term chick lit, but it feels kind of like chick litty. So our lead, her boyfriend does not want her to go. He doesn't see this as a good way for her to improve herself. Our main character is very impulsive. She doesn't want to be tied down. And so she's struggling a lot in her day-to-day life. So when this opportunity presents itself to be cast, she jumps at it despite her boyfriend's wishes. She starts meeting all these different people who are very different from her, from different parts of the US, and a lot of them are like archetypes, like the Joe Rogan type influencer from Texas. We have our Southern gal who likes guns and doesn't like the word feminist, but at the same time, she's had an abortion and believes a lot in female autonomy. We have the ex-religious folk. So I really like all these different characters and how they play together. I think it was really fun to see how these characters interacted and how our main character is learning to understand other people, especially as she's learning to understand herself. Overall, I would say it was a really cute book. I don't know if it's one that's necessarily going to stick with me, but I definitely enjoyed the story itself. And especially near the end, as we got closer to the end of the competition, I found myself engrossed more and more in the characters that were remaining and how our main character was growing. All right, and I guess the theme of this month is sports romance. I mean, let's be real, it's been sports romance ever since Heated Rivalry came out in December. I read Time to Shine by Rachel Reid. This is one of her hockey books that is not in the Heated Rivalry universe. This takes place in a universe where there are a couple gay hockey players. It's still not like a huge thing, but they definitely exist. It's not a major deal. Like that's not the big conflict of the story, like the Game Changer series. We're basically following this goaltender who has been playing in the AHL. which is like the league right below NHL if you're not familiar. He is the starting goalie on his team. He's like part of the Calgary hockey system. So he is called up when a goalie is injured on the Calgary team and joins Calgary as their backup goalie. He makes friends with this player who's known for being kind of their star. He's the son of a popular NHL player. He's really good at what he does. He is very fun, energetic, kind of this goofy guy. And he's also openly bisexual. Our main conflict is that our love interest has a really hard time being alone. Like, because of his like goofy nature, he's been called kind of stupid his whole life, that he's kind of just accepted and like plays it off. He has a really hard time being alone just due to this lingering feeling of like self-worth that, stems down from being the son of a famous hockey player. There's all these interesting layers and internal conflict that go on with our main love interest that I really like, that we're just peeling back over time. It's really one of those people who, you see this certain way in person, but there's so much going on under the surface that we really get a chance to explore, which was nice. And then we have our goaltender. So he's really struggling with feeling like he fits in on the team and dealing with his own nerves. He also had a death in the family that he has never totally gotten over that really impacts his performance, his relationship with his parents. It's really been this heavy weight he's been carrying his whole life. When he has the opportunity to stay on the team for longer than he was anticipating due to injury of one of the other players, he ends up getting invited to room with our love interest. So it is kind of forced proximity. We have our main character who's like kind of broody, kind of quiet, self-loathing. And then of course we have like our golden retriever, sunshine love interest, which is like absolutely fantastic. And he's like just a little bit tortured, but it's really cute to see how these characters like really come together and they bring out the best qualities in one another. And I think that's something that Rachel Reid does really well. She's really good at writing opposites who are compliments. And I really like the way that the team reacted to these individuals and the way that we saw the relationship blossom over time and how they supported each other with their weaknesses and made them stronger in the long run. I thought the conflict at the end was very good as well. I'm not going to spoil it, but I think, if you enjoyed the Game Changer series, this is definitely one that's worth picking up. Like I'm a hockey romance girl, and I think Rachel Reid is one of the best out there. All right, so everything else is romantasy. I finally read Direbound. I was super behind and I had not picked up this book until Furybound came out. So I feel like everyone's read Direbound at this point. Probably not everyone because I haven't read it until this past month, but I really enjoyed it. I think a lot of people make the comparison to Fourth Wing. That's like really what I heard about it starting out, and I don't think it's Fourth Wing. I think it's better than Fourth Wing. I think it's written better. Not that Fourth Wing is a bad book, but I just think Direbound was written in a more interesting way to me personally. In Direbound, our main character's sister goes missing. There had been a series of child kidnappings in her city, and these kidnappings have been attributed to the kingdom that they have been at war with for over 500 years. The kingdom that they're at war with is like a kingdom of vampires, and they feed on children to ensure they use the maximum amount of magic, which is probably not the best way of me putting that, but like that's the only way I can think of putting that. So to find her sister, our main character enlists in the army so that way she can get to the front lines. What she doesn't realize until her boyfriend tells her, and by the way, our main character is like a street rat basically. I mean, she has a home, but she lives in the slums. Our love interest for her lives in the nice part of town. He works for the castle. He has a nice cushy job and he's really good at taking care of her and her family, like very sweet, very devoted. Because of his position, working in the castle, he has found out that it is one of the few ceremony years new initiates will be forcibly given the opportunity to bond with dire wolves, which are like, you know, dire wolves, huge, giant wolves. Think of a wolf the size of a horse, but then like double that. These trials are like super deadly. You don't have to die doing them, but it tends to be pretty deadly because they're very difficult. You're not supposed to have to bond with a wolf. The wolves choose if they're going to bond with you or not. And they say that wolves will not bond with someone who is unwilling. When our main character makes it to the end, which to be fair, this happens early on in the book. And like, let's be real, we all know what's going to happen here. I don't think this is a spoiler, but she's saying, I don't want to bond. I don't want to bond. I need to get to the front lines. Do not choose me. Of course, she is chosen by the wolf who has not bonded with anyone like in 100 years or something like that. She can no longer go to the front line. She now has to train for I think like 9 months in more deadly trials to prove that she is worthy of her wolf and to prove that she can carry her own on the battlefield. Like everyone has to do this. We're following her as she's going through these trials, trying to find some way to help her sister and use the resources of the military around her to find her sister and uncover what's going on here. Because even though, based on what she's heard and from the influence that she's gained, the kidnappings are supposed to be slowing down or stopping, but if anything, they've increased. So we're trying to uncover why this is happening, how all these characters are related to each other, and survive these trials to get to the front lines to help her sister. So there's all these different secrets that we're uncovering. Of course, there is a nice, broody alternate love interest who comes in who is gruff, doesn't seem to like our main character much, seems to be holding a lot of secrets, and it's very tasty. So I think where the similarities lie are the fact that, you're bonding with an animal. Our main character, her hair turns white. I know that Violet has like a white streak. I mean, look, it's a fantasy novel. There's trials. Like, I don't know. All these are tropes that happen. I think it's definitely a different story. And I think that the story is a little bit more cohesive as well. I have not read Furybound yet. That is like next on my list, probably when I'm on the plane to Europe. But yeah, like we have a broody love interest too. Like, okay, every fantasy novel has a broody love interest, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think in terms of like the conflict and everything going on, like it's vampires, giant wolves. I don't think it's that similar. I think the conflict is pretty different as well. Again, I really enjoyed Direbound. I am very excited to read Furybound and just like soak that all in. But I'm very sad that I'm going to have to wait for the next one in the series after that. All right, so there's probably going to be a little bit of a lighting change. I have to go to a coffee meeting about redesigning the logo for my company. So I will be back to finish this video after I do my coffee meeting. All right, I'm back from my meeting. All right, so let me see where we left off. Okay, yes, we talked about Direbound. So next, I want to talk The Enchanted Greenhouse by Beth Durst. I traditionally am a cozy fantasy hater. And just like, hear me out. I am someone who likes to read books with high stakes. I like high stakes. I want my blood pounding. I want to feel angst and anguish, and cozy fantasy just like generally doesn't deliver on that. Even with romance books, like I need a third act breakup. If there's not a third act breakup, I'm upset. I need miscommunication. I don't know. I need something. I need to feel pain. And cozy fantasy is like the opposite of that. Cozy fantasy is one of those genres, and I'm like, I get why people like it. It's like the same people who read fluff fan fictions, and I am like also a fluff hater. I do not want fluff in my fix. Hurt comfort is my favorite genre. I wasn't anticipating to like The Enchanted Greenhouse as much as I did. I'll be honest, the whole reason why I read it is because I have these beautiful sprayed edge copies that I've been carrying at my bookstore, and no one's picked them up, even though I've heard great things about this series. When I was at BookCon, like the line for Beth Durst signings was like wrapping around. I wanted to figure out how to talk to people about this book as someone who doesn't love cozy fantasy, because I realized I couldn't just avoid the genre doing what I do. This is the second book in her series that started with like the spell shop. It's like interconnected standalones from my understanding. So we have our main character. I want to say her name is Turlu. This is when I listened to the audiobook, and I really liked the audiobook narration. I thought it was fantastic. She is turned to a stone statue for doing magic illegally, because in this world you are only allowed to do magic if you are a like licensed sorcerer. Will have had terrible accidents due to using magic unauthorized or without the proper training. But Turlu teaches herself magic because she's lonely and she wants to make a plant sentient. So she makes her plant sentient. People find out. The court decides to make an example out of her and do a severe punishment to discourage other people from doing magic. She's sentenced to be turned into a stone statue and kept in the library. All of a sudden, we don't know how much time passes. She doesn't know how much time passes. She's like not totally conscious in this statue state. She wakes up in the snow and she's like, oh my God, I'm not a statue anymore. So she wanders in the snow, tries not to freeze to death and finds her way to a greenhouse. She ends up meeting the greenhouse caretaker. He is here on his own, taking care of these magical greenhouses and trying to stop the magic from failing. What's happening to these greenhouses is that they have been kept safe, not only from the elements, but have their temperatures regulated, have everything that the plants need due to the magic that was imbued into these greenhouses. Not only that, the plants used to talk, they used to have personalities, and then years ago, when our caretaker was a child, the magic started failing. So now he's trying to keep these greenhouses like intact and trying to keep these plants just alive, maybe not sentient, but alive. And it turns out he's been asking for help from the kingdom for years now to try to have someone help him fix the greenhouses because he doesn't know magic. He's not a sorcerer. He can't use magic. And so he thought Turley was a sorcerer. She is not. She doesn't understand why she was brought there. He doesn't understand why she was brought there. But together, they start finding ways to fix the greenhouse. We meet these really great cast of characters in the form of talking plants, familial drama that we are learning about and uncovering for our lead love interest. The romance is like really cute, but it's not like insta love or insta lust. I don't know. I just felt like everything that happened in the story was very earned. And even though the stakes weren't high, there were stakes. And I think sometimes with cozy fantasy, I run to the problem with there are like zero stakes, and I need some stakes. So the fact that there are people trying to save the thing that they care most about, which is these plants, are these greenhouses, their home. It just really did something for me and like resonated with me as like a cozy story that still got me excited. What I need is a reason to keep reading. I want to know why I should turn the page to find out what happens next. And this book really gave that to me, even though there wasn't any like life-saving adventure or magical quest that they had to go on. The fact that I wanted to find out what was going on with this man's family, why this island is now abandoned, why the greenhouses are failing, like I was invested. I wanted to know more. And so I thought it was wonderfully executed. If you're hesitant on cozy fantasy, like I actually highly recommend this. And I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed it. So now we have the last book, Shield of Sparrows by Devney. This is another one I'm very late to the game on. I know the second book came out recently, however, it's just not one I had really gotten to. This one I read on my Kobo. Our lead here, she is basically the spare sister. She's been raised to be forgettable her entire life because there are several kingdoms in this continent that are constantly at least wanting to be at war together. However, there has been an old magical pact in place called the Shield of Sparrows that keeps them from fighting. Now, the Shield of Sparrows wasn't like 100% clear to me, but that may have been like a skill issue on my part because I was reading several books at the same time. The Shield is essentially a marriage pact. One of the single leaders from another kingdom marries the heir of another kingdom. In this case, it's a daughter. So one of the daughters has been raised for this occasion her entire life. Like all of her school lessons, everything that she's done in her life was to stand out, was to lead, was to learn how to be a queen and learn how to be a spy. However, when this kingdom comes to collect their prize, they say, no, I actually don't want her. I want the forgettable one. Give me the forgettable one. They try to fight on this. There's a whole sequence of events that leads to other kingdom getting what they want and our heroine getting married to the prince of the neighboring kingdom. So our princess, who has never had to train for this for her entire life, is now being asked by her father to spy on this kingdom to find out where like their mythical city is that has all of the resources. That way they can invade and not only gain more land, but gain the resources that they're desperately seeking from this other kingdom. So they're entering into this marriage in bad faith, despite the fact that the magic of the Shield of Sparrows says that if you hurt the leaders of the neighboring kingdom, like that the shield is in place for or something, like it will cause death and destruction upon your own kingdom. So it's not very clear how they plan on getting around this, or if our heroine's father, king guy, just thinks that like it's worth it. Our girl's trying to turn into a spy, and turns out she's like really bad at it. This does have like the trope of, oh, it turns out that maybe your home wasn't as good as you thought. There is a identity issue with our prince as well that I won't get too deep into, but it's very fun to see how that unfolds. Of course, as you can imagine, there is a questioning of alliances and where our princess should align herself with the family that raised her, that brought her up to be who she is, but at the same time has like really snuffed out her spark her entire life, or the people that she just met who love her for who she is, that are encouraging her to become her own person and see like the spark that's inside of her. You know, I feel like this is a classic romantasy story, but it's one that I'm still having a lot of fun with. Like, do I think that this book is groundbreaking? No. But do I think it's fun as hell? Absolutely. Like, I had a really good time reading it. It's a thick book, but I got through it pretty freaking fast. I think that it's definitely a page turner, fast paced. If you're looking for just like a nice classic romantasy adventure, I think it's a good one. I'm looking forward to picking up the second book. I know it's out, Rights of the Starling. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm definitely going to continue reading the series. It's a good time, and that's what I'm looking for a lot of the time. I'm looking for a good time. I don't need every book to be groundbreaking for me. I just need to have fun. That's me. That's what I read this month. I don't know how frequently I'm going to post on this channel. I do have my 9 to 5 and then my 5 to 9, but I would ideally like to post on this like maybe once a week, just about what I'm reading, what's going on, maybe with my business, if that's something any of y'all are interested in. I am looking forward to posting on here and getting back to my YouTube roots. So thanks for watching.